Today, Alaska stands as America's largest state, a land of breathtaking wilderness and untold natural wealth. Its path to statehood is a fascinating tale of imperial ambition, strategic gambling, and remarkable foresight. But did you know, before this vast land of mostly empty nothingness was a part of the United States, it was invaded and colonized by Russians. And much like the British East India Company, there was a Russian-American company running the territory's hunting rights. Today we know that the US bought Alaska from Russia. It's often called Seward's Folly due to a belief that it was a huge mistake at the time. But was it really an unsound decision? Did people at the time consider it foolish? Why did the United States pay millions of dollars for an undeveloped territory of wilderness right after a costly civil war? In today's video, I will get into the intriguing story of Russia's foray into the American continent, how it started, how it progressed, and how it came to an abrupt end in one of the worst deals in history for Russia. And on the flip side, one of the greatest deals of the century for the United States. Before Russians called Alaska theirs, indigenous people had lived here for thousands of years. The story of modern Alaska begins with its indigenous peoples, who crossed the Bering Land Bridge, sometimes called Beringia, during the last ice age. These ancient hunter-gatherers were the first to populate the Americas, with some groups moving south to become the ancestors of American Indians. Around 10,000 years ago, as glaciers melted and sea levels rose, this crucial land bridge disappeared beneath the waves. Fast forward to the 18th century, when Russian expansion under Tsar Peter the Great reached eastern Siberia. In 1741, explorer Vitus Bering made his first historic landing on what would become Bering Island. This marked the beginning of Russian colonization, and it was ultimately treacherous for Vitus Bering, as he passed away from scurvy after being caught in a fierce storm and shipwrecked on the Aleutian Islands. The crew managed to repair their vessel and return with news of the land, with countless seal, fox, and otter furs. When they returned home, the receiving Russians were so impressed with the haul that it sparked a rush to settle the newfound land in search of a fortune in furs. But it came at a devastating cost to the native populations, particularly the Aleuts of the Aleutian Islands. The Aleuts were master hunters who had invented the kayak and skillfully hunted otters and seals. Contact with Europeans proved catastrophic, as European diseases decimated their population, from 10,000 in 1741 to just 2,000 by 1800. The Russians' trade goods, liquor, and firearms only added to their troubles. At its peak, the Russian settlement in Alaska was home to around 800 Russian fortune seekers, and in 1784, the Russian-American Company established its first permanent settlement on Kodiak Island. Like the British East India Company, it held a monopoly on hunting, trading, and mining in the region. By 1799, they had established the fort of Archangel Michael on Alaska's mainland panhandle. But Russia's success attracted competitors. The Spanish, protective of their Pacific coast interests, began expanding northward. They founded missions in San Diego, Monterey, and San Francisco, and even established a port at Valdez, a name that would become infamous centuries later during the 1989 oil spill. The Russian colonies faced significant challenges. Supply ships from Russia arrived only every 2 or 3 years, forcing them to depend on trade with other European settlers, particularly Americans. Merchants from Boston and New York, recognizing the region's potential, began conducting a triangular trade between New England, Alaska, and China's Canton trading post. By the 1850s, the political landscape was shifting. Russia and America shared a common adversary in Great Britain. As Tsar Nicholas I noted when he told the US minister in St. Petersburg, not only are our interests alike, but our enemies are the same. The Crimean War of 1853 forced Russia to redirect its attention towards Europe. At the same time, its North American ventures were showing diminishing returns. The sea otter population, once 300,000 strong in the early 19th century, had been hunted to near extinction. And, get this, despite modest gold discoveries, Russian authorities weren't convinced to maintain their holding. They had witnessed the California gold rush bring 300,000 prospectors to American soil and feared a similar influx of people might cost them Alaska without any compensation at all. In March 1867, Russian Minister Eduard de Stokel met with Seward in Washington. After brief negotiations, they settled on a purchase price of $7.2 million for a territory of nearly 600,000 square miles, which is around 384 million acres. This works out to be less than 2 cents per acre, and one of the best deals the United States has ever bargained for in its entire history. Contrary to popular belief, most Americans welcomed the purchase. They saw Alaska as a treasure trove of mineral resources and a stepping stone toward possibly annexing Canada. So why was it labeled a foolish move? Why is it called a folly? The notion that the purchase was derided as Seward's folly is actually one of American history's strongest myths, one that later took root to support Alaska's image as a territory of renegades and pioneers. The official transfer occurred on October 18, 1867, with a simple ceremony and exchange of salutes between Russian and American soldiers. Under American control, Alaska was initially placed under Navy supervision, with particular wariness toward the indigenous Tlingit people. The territory's early years were marked by both progress and problems. The 1880 census counted 330,000 inhabitants, and that same year saw the first major gold strike. Gold was first discovered in Alaska in the 1880s along the Stikine River in southeast Alaska, near what is now Wrangell. This discovery led to the first Alaskan gold rush. Though it was relatively small, a more significant gold discovery occurred in 1886 near the 40-mile river, close to the Yukon River in eastern Alaska, which sparked a larger influx of prospectors. The discovery of gold drove Alaska's population to double between 1890 and 1900. The Klondike Gold Rush of 1896 would eventually yield over $300 million in gold. Alaska's journey to statehood was gradual. It became a territory with its own legislature in 1912, and Anchorage was founded in 1915. During World War II, Alaska proved strategically crucial for mobilizing troops into the Pacific Theater. Finally, in 1959, it became America's 49th state. The territory's relationship with its indigenous peoples saw a significant shift in 1971 when President Nixon ceded 44 million acres of federal land to Alaska's native populations, along with a $1 billion grant. Today, 15% of Alaska's population identifies as indigenous, the highest percentage of any U.S. state. The discovery of oil transformed Alaska, just as gold had earlier. Alaska's proved crude oil reserves, about 3.2 billion barrels at the beginning of 2022, are the fourth largest in the nation, and large areas of the state still remain unexplored for oil. So, plenty more liquid gold will be discovered and harnessed in the state. The North Slope area of Alaska contains 6 of the 100 largest oil fields in the United States and 1 of the 100 largest natural gas fields. Alaska's Prudhoe Bay is among the 10 largest oil fields in the nation. The Trans-Alaska Pipeline helped make oil revenue a major part of the state's budget. Today, 25% of oil revenues go into an investment account that helps fund the state, allowing Alaska to operate without personal income tax or sales tax. Since 1982, every eligible state resident receives an annual dividend that is based on the value of oil royalty revenue in the Alaska Permanent Fund. The 2023 dividend was $1,312, down from the record $3,284 the year before. Looking back, perhaps we should rename Seward's Folly to Seward's Brilliance, a bet that paid off handsomely in gold, oil, and natural resources. Beyond its material wealth, Alaska remains a powerful symbol of the American frontier, a place where the intrepid can still seek their fortune if they're tough enough to brave its challenges. And here's an interesting geographical footnote. Alaska isn't just America's westernmost state, it's also technically the easternmost. The Aleutian Archipelago extends so far west that it actually crosses into the eastern hemisphere. And yes, there is really a spot where you can see Russia from Alaska on a clear day. Perhaps one day it will be possible to cross from Alaska to Russia's Siberia via a Bering Strait bridge. And if so, I will definitely make a video about it. That's all for now. Please share, like, and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next video.